right, everyone. Grab yourself a brew, grab yourself a blanket. Let's talk about some paranormal stuff, and we're going to talk about astrology today. Um, and I'm hoping everybody is having a good time. And yes, let us start with our today's conversation with astrology, how it can affect us in our everyday life. Just even if you're not sensitive, uh, and for the people that who are sensitive, how much our abilities are affected by the planetary alignments, where some of us just don't have it in us to actually perform our talents, or sometimes we actually are at our peak at certain days of certain time of the day, or certain days. I mean, it's just like for myself, like sometimes I just can't pull cards no matter what I want to do and help somebody. It's like I just can't, because I just don't have the drive, or just is not I'm not feeling it. And I mean, it is crazy sometimes. Um, we have like talk about you know about stuff of how sensitive we are to these planetary alignments, how psychically affects us, as well as emotionally. It is crazy how when when we sit back and ask ourselves, why am I feeling this way today? Because sometimes we don't think about. Uh, Sometimes we wake up in a bad mood, and it could be just like planetary alignments. Like there is no reason to, just our alignments are just off for that day, and we have no control over it. It's like, oh, it's a bad day. We have that intuition was like, okay, I'm not going into work today. There's just I can't perform at my best. I'll tear people's head off. You know, because of the way I'm feeling today, and I don't know how to control this. And sometimes, like, okay, the best thing to do is just close yourself off. As like, today's just a write a day off, and just say, okay, today's just not going to be it. Or you just kick back and just do the best that you can, because sometimes some of us can't take the day off,
you know.
or we got to go in and face the day, seize the day and do the best that we can. But sometimes some of us have that hurdle in front of us.
Yeah, I think being sensitive is a condition that impacts a majority of people. And I think being sensitive can be broken down to, a technical level of course, you're saying, being a sensitive with being a psychic, being a sensitive with someone who's a practitioner, when your energies are on point, and that's something that you're intuitively feeling. But the majority of people will be like, I feel so off today.
Hmm.
And I think, saying that the vibes are off may not be as technical as we'd like, or that a lot of jobs wouldn't necessarily
Hmm.
be like, okay, the vibes aren't right, or the planets aren't
or
in the right
or
places,
or nothing goes right.
or nothing goes right. But in that regard, I would say always find the flow of least resistance. And in that way, you can nurture the sensitivities that you may be encountering within yourself. And so, right, psychically, you can have sensitivity. And when it comes to psychic sensitivity, I think it's something to be talked about, that a majority of people do have psychic sensitivity, and it's not nurtured or developed in the
Hmm.
way that it really should be. So
Oh,
it's good to dissect why you are feeling sensitive, or what you are being sensitive about, whether you are a practitioner, whether you're someone who is just trying to get through life every day, or someone who sees things from a certain perspective.
hmm.
I do believe psychic ability is very innate within us, and when we realize that some of our sensitivities may be coming from a psychic place or the
Hmm.
psychic realm, I do feel that it needs to be developed. It's a point where you need to find people who are your soul family or your
Hmm.
soul tribe, people that can psychically be in tune with your sensitivity, psychically um, tune themselves to something that is developed in such a way that's translatable so that you can kind of gain control and somewhat of a mastery over a sensitivity that you may be feeling. And I think the other thing is too about being sensitive. Some of us, I think it's notable, no, definitely not myself, um, would be a little bit more sensitive on the emotional scale. So sometimes there are people that we encounter, or even ourselves, we encounter at different points of the year that we're highly emotional. Being a sensitive and being emotionally
Hmm.
sensitive, I'd like to drive the point home, is very different.
Oh, can
Emo-
I interject for a moment?
yeah,
I mean, it's a great train of thought, but also I thought about this right now, where sometimes like we feel like we're hexed, uh,
that's a good one.
you
Yeah.
know, but I think it could be planetary alignments that have a lot to do with that. When we think that things are forces that are working against us, is like we forget, like it could be planetary alignments
I feel
that.
like that would be a psychically sensitive calling
Mhm.
to planetary alignments to know to look up rather
Mhm.
than look within or look around
Mhm.
us.
And I think some people that are sensitive, and they think, oh, somebody put a hex on me, or a juju or something. It's like, no, it could be also just something simple as planetary alignments are
Or
off.
what all's in your natal chart,
Mm-hmm.
which is putting me back on the track for being emotionally sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us be a little bit more emotionally sensitive or in tune than other people. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of people who look within, and I'd encourage them to look at triggers or anything in that regard to gain control, or understanding about this emotional intelligence as well as the sensitivity. But your natal chart information shows all the planetary alignments
Mm-hmm.
and positions that are specific to you that could make you a little bit more emotionally sensitive than the next person. And that is a gift. And that
Mm-hmm.
gift is sprinkled all throughout the planet, whether we believe in astrology or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the aspect of being emotionally sensitive really can take on a different level, even if you aren't trained to be a psychic
Mm-hmm.
practitioner or you're someone, again, that's just kind of normal, trying to get through life, holding a
Yeah.
specific perspective.
Yes, I mean, like for me, I'm only a dabbler in astrology. I'm actually now this phase of my life thinking about, okay, there's another level to this as well that I've never considered in the past. That now, listening to other psychics talking about planetary alignments, and how some of these signs mean to certain people, certain planets being in certain places. I'm starting to listen to a few of those people. It's like, well, okay, that gives me a good idea of what my when next, this couple of days are going to be possibly like, in for me this week. And I put that as a thing that I'm trying to put myself consciously aware of as well, because that kind of helps what my day might be, and how to plan the best that I can. Because I like to be aware and educated in what's coming up in the week. Sometimes, like, it's nothing, but sometimes there's certain planetary alignments, like, you got to be aware, because you're going to be very sensitive. Or this week, if you want, it's going to be a good week for you to manifest things. Think about yourself. Or sometimes it's like, oh no, you're going to be manifesting, but it's going to be, you got to be thinking about for manifesting for other people, not for yourself. Or there's so many levels, and that's what's great about what I'm learning, dipping my toes in astrology, I mean, it's really fascinating
Well,
because I still.
I feel like astrology is very much so a slippery slope, and it's
Mhm.
because even with the things that you've mentioned, astrology gets a lot of kickback and a lot of skepticism around it because the power of suggestion is something that humans are very susceptible to.
Oh,
While
absolutely.
it's extremely helpful, people say that they don't believe in astrology because it's a way of self prophesizing or suggesting that things will be a certain way.
Yes,
What
but
I've
that's a
done, right, what
but that's a
I've done,
powerful thing
it
too
sure is.
for
Yeah.
yourself too. Is like if you want to manifest something for the greater good of you and your community or your soul tribe.
It'd be
That's.
important to know where the planets
Hmm.
exist. So that's planetary alignment, and planets are in line with zodiacs, what
Hmm.
we can kind of attribute to the study of astrology and what all it comprises. One thing that I have found astrology extremely useful for, regardless of it being something that could border the
Hmm.
power of suggestion or, anything that might not pertain to us in general, because a lot of the times,
Hmm.
astrological predictions when it comes to planetary placements are generalities
Hmm.
for what all could happen. Um, there's a lot that you really that you can really grasp in hindsight. And I
Hmm.
say this in the way that when you are a psychic practitioner or you are someone who is just existing on planet Earth who
Hmm.
innately has psychic abilities or emotional sensitivities or even spiritual lingerings, you have a central guidance system. You have a way of having intuition, being drawn to things, being sensitive to things, feeling and seeing things other people can't, even if it's at a very low and subtle level. Going about life without taking astrology
Hmm.
into consideration at first allows you to go back and justify, maybe not justify, but explain and understand the human
It's
condition, but yourself. And oh,
un,
that's why I was
yes,
feeling this
under
way.
it's the
So
big
now I can prepare when I see this planet enter my sign. I can assume that this may happen for me, and it's no longer a general prediction
Mhm.
that could or could not affect me if I suggest it in such a way that it fits. Our brain is so powerful that I wanted to bring that point into discussion because
Oh yeah.
astrology is for everyone, whether they like it or not. Everybody was born on a day in which we at this time observe on a calendar
Well,
by certain lunar cycles,
well,
planetary cycles,
understand that we're going by a what is it
Gregorian calendar
a
or something.
Gregorian calendar
Right?
and also
It might be.
the astrology symbols. They weren't all were. I mean, there's been I think there's been one.
Chiron.
What? Yeah, that one's been didacted.
Well, and it goes to say that there's a natural order even present in a spirit animal, the tortoise
Hmm.
that has 13, I think 13 little shell markings on the back of his shell to denote the true lunar calendar,
Hmm.
and I do believe that on a different type of calendar and timekeeping and situation that we have may have had going on, there should be a 13th zodiac
Hmm.
sign to go with a 13th lunar cycle so that each turn of our months lasts about 28 days or so. It's a cycle in which the moon is hitting bi-weekly at different places for the
Hmm.
new and full moon along with all the other planets. So I do believe the misinterpretation between the calendar systems
Hmm.
leaves so much open for astrology.
Hmm.
Some people will not hear about Chiron
Hmm.
because it's not a recognized
Well,
planet.
we also have to remember that this is an astrology symbols that are we use commonly here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to remember there's also a Chinese zodiac.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
there's Vedic astrology as
I mean
well, and
there's
there's even galactic astrology now.
see yeah exactly there's so many different. Well, I'm talking more about cultural.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, Understand that that's what we use here commonly in the U.S. is the zodiac signs, but China has their own zodiac animals pertaining to their cultural beliefs and.
By the years, I think, and that would be a
Mhm.
full 12 cycles within the year being represented by an animal.
Mhm.
And planets have themes, they have colors, they
Mhm.
have animals, they have a lot of correspondence with the things that
Alchemical symbols, I think.
yeah.
Um, but that's what we here in the U.S. Some of those are tied to as well.
There's a lot of correspondence, and there is a lot of prediction that can be soundly made in general for a group of 12 signs that we know as the zodiacs, in which we, practice here regular, astrology. And let's say your zodiac sign, if something's coming up for your zodiac sign, that's one thing to know within that month. But if something's coming up in your year, considering
Hmm.
Chinese astrology, considering where the moon is and which day within the calendar these correspondences are happening, you could really bring in astrology to guide you
Hmm.
and be so specific that it's uncanny.
Hmm.
And I think that's why so many people now are really kind of flocking over to what we know as a natal chart and trying to understand themselves from a planetary position level, from a zodiac level,
Hmm. Yeah, that's like the next level. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, we're
You're
we're
saying
at the
there's
begin.
levels, most
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly. It's like this is the beginner level. This is intermediate level where you start going into the astrology to it, and then you go like a next level above that, looking at planetary alignments, what elements going through what, and what's this symbol, and like I actually showed you my natal chart. I mean, and there's like
I have that somewhere.
and that actually, as an example, there gave you a
Hmm.
chart going through in a circle, and there's like lines going through it.
Yeah, so a natal chart a lot of the times will have like a sphere and a lot of different
Hmm.
lines going through, plotting the planets in those positions
Now.
of the day you were born. Having the time is important
Hmm.
because it gives you an ascendant or a rising sign. And I
What?
see in your natal chart here, you knew the time and place that you
Yes.
were born.
Now, what's the crazy thing about it? When I gave it to you, and when I looked at it, mine almost looks like a box. If you look at it, it almost like an open box.
Oh, yeah, it sure does.
A lot of signs are close together, making a box. Like, and then there something going across it, like a no sign.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's the symbolism.
Yeah, there's a lot of symbolism and even spiritually
Hmm.
sensitive information that you could pull from just looking at what your natal chart looks like without even knowing the importance of the characteristics denoted by each house, each zodiac
Hmm.
sign, and each planetary position. Um, and I think that's pretty awesome here, down to the color.
Hmm.
True astrologers can pick apart
And
your
that's
entire life
like,
without ever knowing you.
it's almost, yeah.
And I
It's
think
crazy.
probably what's crazy is people looking in retrospect at, let's say, notorious serial killers
Hmm.
or notorious celebrity couples that lasted a long time or that were very toxic. It's all present in planetary position, zodiac disposition, alignments, and it is highly notable that it's somewhat predictable or written in the
Hmm.
stars. And that to me is crazy. You're telling me that all this was
Well,
presaged
yeah.
by you being born at a certain place and certain time, and these animals and stars and planets will tell you before it
Hmm.
even happens? That is nuts.
Yes, and there's and exactly, but also that for some people, of course, you don't have to believe in this. It's just one of those things where it's like you don't have to believe in this. It's just a helpful
But
tool.
like I said, you don't have to believe in it, but astrology is for everyone. Everyone's been born on this
It's
planet that we know of.
it is it
In
is
this reality and timeline, we've been born on this
it
planet.
is a useful tool if you decide to use it. You don't have to. You don't have to believe in it.
Right.
But there's some
There's logic to it. Even if there
exactly.
isn't a belief, I don't think it's a belief based system. It's actually quite logical and uses a lot of math, uses a lot of geometrical plotting,
Mhm.
uses astronomy, astrology, a lot of things to kind of gray area each other to give you insight
Mhm.
that doesn't need to be psychically endowed to you or maintained as a psychic gift. It's very logical and something that can be studied and that's been studied and that's progressed humanity for hundreds of years with
Well,
people with less resources.
well, it's let's put it this way. It still exists.
The
I
fact that
mean
it does, and it was one of the preliminary things that was discovered and that pushed along other things that we are very much so grateful to have to this day. It's
that's a
mind boggling.
yeah, and that's a crazy thing.
It's
If
that calculable.
mhm. Yes, that's the crazy thing is that if it was not a valid system, it would disappear in time.
Absolutely. And it
But it's
has
still
all but
but it's
disappeared in
still
time.
but it still holds up today if people believe it or not. It's still around because there is some
Accuracy.
semblance of usefulness
And
in our
predictability
in our
for,
modern day world.
yeah, for the cycles of the planets that have been surrounding our planet. So, as far as natal charts and information in that regard, as far as my readings and stuff, I look at a top three.
Hmm.
And the top three for me is
Yeah.
like a little snapshot of someone's personality,
Yeah, kind
what
of
their
like
disposition is, what they might believe, how they might react to
yeah,
things.
kind of like pulling three cards for a
Past,
in a
present,
spread.
future.
Exactly like in a card spread.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So, do you mind if I disclose what your top three are?
No, go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so because with my natal chart information, it's very important to um, know where you're born in the time. It gives you the rising sign. This is quite exciting here. We have a sun sign, a moon sign, and a rising sign for Luis, and his sun sign is Virgo. So the sign of Virgo, he has a Pisces moon, and his ascendant sign is Cancer. So I mean, I'm not gonna tell you what these things add up to because that would be a reading, and we'd have to schedule that for you at
Mhm.
AmericanTarotStory.com.
Mhm.
But just to give some information for the podcast here, I could tell you that you're quite meticulous in the things that you do. You're quite organized. You like to see lots of order and things in advance as far as planning for your
Mhm.
sun sign here in Virgo. In Moon with Pisces, we know that Pisces encompasses a lot of water. It's safe to say that water has emotional flow, and I could say that you are very emotionally sensitive and most likely extremely psychic. Pisces will rule the moon. Cancer will rule the moon and its energy. These water signs, by no coincidence,
Mhm.
will surround this planet, and this planet
Mhm.
being so mysterious to our intuition and what it lends us and its cycles, even down to astrology and planetary position, really says a lot when a Pisces sign that is almost always psychic and tapped into intuition in a different way is present here. With an ascendant sign, we see what people think you are.
Mhm.
So with a sun sign, I can tell kind of how you go throughout your day.
Mhm.
With your moon sign, we can kind of assume and make an assumption by the correspondence in planetary and astrology disposition. And then in the ascendant sign, seeing the Cancer sign means that you are someone who is highly emotional, but the Pisces with the Cancer linking up together with high emotions, that also gives an extra aspect of intuition, but also that you're someone that plays the long game. You're someone that will see the future, plan for it, and tactically get there using your intuition as a guide. How do you think that sounds?
Yeah,
Probably
I
pretty,
like.
yeah.
Yeah, I like to plan.
I'd like to think that's about right for you. So these top three are quite important as far as what you can tell about a person, even from a practitioner's perspective, or even just a beginner's learning perspective for self mastery. These top three signs are the sun sign, the moon sign, and the ascendant sign. The ascendant sign available when you know the date and time. The time is very important to getting that, so we can know where the planets were. so that these things can be determined through calculation. A lot of this is calculation. Present in a natal chart information is other corresponding information that will continue to tell me things about your life, the things that you're capable of, the things that you were capable of in your past life, themes that could have been there. And all of those will go back to Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, all the planets that we know. So I think it's pretty vast information, and I try to leave that to professional astrologers because they are out there and they are miraculous people who may just be a regular person living their day-to-day life but have a huge illumination when it comes to these calculations and helping people find their true selves.
Yeah, it's their strong point. I mean, it's not
It's
every.
logical information that can be studied, in which you don't need to be spiritual, you don't need to be psychic, you just need to have been born on the planet. Chances are, if you're listening right now, you were probably born here, and a lot of this stuff applies to you and can be seen from a very approachable, logical level in which woo-woo does not need to be involved. But if it is, whether it's through a practitioner, spirituality, or even emotional level, there's much to be unpacked, much to learn, and much to be assumed correctly and predicted about as we talk about astrology and incorporate it into day-to-day life, which I wouldn't advise against in any which way. To me, it's like affirmation of what I was feeling after the fact.
Exactly,
And that's the way I tend to use it. A lot of people, like yourself, you're seeing it as something preemptive that you can plan for. That makes so much sense within your natal chart information. Your Virgo sun is saying, we need to plan for this. We need to know a little bit in advance. Isn't that insane how that works?
Yeah, I mean, I like to know what's possibly coming up in the week.
Very,
like
very-
sometimes, like, okay, do I need to get my my Florida water out and take a after taking a shower, do I need to put some on for the next
I
day?
think the Florida water being busted out, we could be talking about Mercury retrograde, maybe some retrograde cycles.
Or like some essential oils just to
And those essential oils would be correspondent with the planets that are active, right?
well, no, it just I like to use like a road opener oil for
Take notes. Road
and
openers are
that's
really great workings.
and that's just like, okay, this week it looks like it's going to be a bad week, a lot of stuff going on, depending on not just for me, it's not just the astrology as much as sometimes I feel like, okay, this is going to be a rough week. I need a road opener to make sure to knock things out. Same thing with the Florida water. Make sure that a lot of things, I knock away all the things that are attaching to me, and trying to have less as possible attachments to slow my day down or it hindrance me with the energies that are out there that I'm going to be facing in the week. And sometimes I can feel it, or sometimes in the astrological charts you can sometimes forecast it, and I just prepare for it.
Right.
And that's what I usually do, is just prepare for it, have a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Since my line of work, I don't have I don't burn any incense, I don't burn anything because of the sensitivity of my workplace about that sort of stuff. So it's I have like air freshener that has a certain scent, or I have essential oils that have a certain scent, or the road opener I put on myself, and the Florida water, after taking a hot shower, to make sure I cleanse everything else that I've got attached during the day, and trying to clear any attachments from having a rough day, so I can have a more positive following day. Um, and that's like I said, that's what things that I do when I'm out on the road for a month. Um, because and what's crazy, on a different subject, for a moment, um, some of these truck stops are actually having some essential oils and crystals and stuff. Is like, oh my god, it's like
And
some of these.
luckily so, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and they actually have some like, uh, dragon's blood, some sage, for you to burn, and sometimes some incense.
So dragon's blood sounds a little bit intriguing. Can you explain what dragon's blood would be used for in your practice?
Uh, I really don't.
And is it an oil for you,
It's
or is it blood? We gotta know.
it's. I mean, I don't use it. I really don't. That's why I use oils, because they're. It's not burning. I can't burn anything in my workplace,
Hmm.
so I don't use any of those. That's why, like, I use like cinnamon oil. I put it on. I put on the seat, so I'm always smelling it. And it breaks. It's one of the things that I like to use as like, multiple things, like, bringing abundance or breaking. It's like using sage. It's another. It's the alternative to using white sage.
Awesome.
So
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's because
I just
white
wanted to
sage.
break that down because
Yeah,
blood.
'cause
People are like dragon's blood. That sounds so mythical. What is that? I don't know what
yeah,
that is.
it's
So
yeah,
in my
it's
practice, yes, it's like a reddish, like maroonish color
yeah,
of
exactly.
sage, and it's something that you can burn, but that is also in oil form. Normally, it's like a burgundy
I've
color, so it looks like blood. But I am going to tell you,
I've never
it
seen
doesn't
it.
involve blood. It isn't blood. It's called dragon's blood, and it's quite protective and kind of a little
I've
bit essential for like a road opener.
Yeah,
In
I
some
mean,
ways.
I've never seen it as an oil form,
Yeah,
so I need to
is there?
look into that,
Yeah.
because that'd be easier for me to travel with,
Mm-hmm.
and and just have it like a dab it on one of those, ceramic pieces, to let the aromatics in my workplace,
Yeah.
uh, permeate my workspace.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned oils because there are certain soothing scents to different um, human types or human likes or sensitivities, but there are correspondent oils per planet, per astrological sign, that even a common non-practicing person could use to ease their
Hmm.
day-to-day, given that planets don't care whether you're a practitioner or
Hmm.
not. They're still having cycles that move around and have a pull on you and your emotions. So
Yes.
it's something that you could do quite easily without having to embark on a practice or say that you are a practitioner of any kind. But it's a way of igniting your senses that are already kind of there for you to feed and help you along. So if you feed your senses things that ease your day to day, learning your astrology and when to do those things could really ease your life and give
Hmm.
you a sense of like mastery. And I feel like a lot of the times when we're reading tarot or reading oracle or throwing runes or
Hmm.
tossing charms, we are trying to gain control for the least path of resistance and a mastery over our lives. And I think there's a big elephant in the room when it comes to mastery of one's life. Mastery of one's life is pretty much what we're here to do. Understand and acknowledge what our soul's mission is, understand why we're here, and that being a roadmap to it doesn't mean that you are in the occult or that it's esoteric. It means that you are enriching your mind to understand things as they are. Planetary disposition happened and you were just born, you were a baby. Like there was nothing you could do at that point but going and gaining information that is logically calculable by an old system that has planetary, stuff swirling around the planet that you exist on has nothing to do with being witchy, spiritual, psychic. It really has, in my opinion, a lot to do with you mastering yourself and what you were here to do. People struggle with purpose on a
Oh,
day to day, minute by minute
that's just
basis.
like the big thing that's going on right now is like a lot of people just don't know what their purpose is out of even more out of love readings. You know what I mean? Uh, because I hear that more in the public eye compared to love is like, love is number two, but the big one that I've always been coming across lately is for the last what 5 to 7 years is what's my purpose
Why am I here?
exactly one of
Why
my
is my life this
then
way?
I think
Why are
that's why
things going this way?
exactly and I think a lot of what's going on right now has a lot to do with people a lot of people are in the a lot of these social medias trying to cancel people because
Their
they
perception is different, and the
they
way
have
that
no
they communicate these perceptions and sensitivities are not well understood.
I think they have no other purpose, so they try to make a purpose, but sometimes
The
they do
purpose
it
is written in the
negative.
stars.
Yeah, they do it negatively.
And because they're going without guidance, and it's kind of
Hmm.
like just reaching around in the dark, trying out different things, which go you. If you have the initiative to try different things, to
Hmm.
navigate yourself by intuition alone or logically what makes sense to you at the time, that is 1,000% more than
Hmm.
doing nothing, will ever equate to,
Yeah.
especially in finding your purpose. But I feel so lucky to be able to, read cards or use
Hmm.
tools or even astrology as a system to help guide people for their purpose or even to understand their planetary dispositions
Yeah,
ruining their
that's
life for that week or whatever
yeah,
it
that's
is.
crazy
It,
because there's a lot of people that are disconnected is like and they
and
and they're
reasonably
being
so.
well no, they're disconnected because they're taught to be disconnected.
Hmm.
And they don't know how to connect and they're trying to connect but in a negative way because it's the easiest path that's why from my I think from my perspective a lot of people are born into this world. We don't hate, we are taught to hate.
Hmm.
And also it's the easiest one because you know people are people there's so many different type of people and sometimes it's like people are it just have to be different. It doesn't have to be they could be the same skin color but they're different and that's enough to uh, create some create a distance and between two people and that's a choice.
It can be a choice.
Yes,
Sometimes people will
true,
be
true.
lost for a long time and not realize there are resources that wouldn't put them in a disposition, with their family or within
Hmm.
religion that could get them into, where they need to be or what they were put here to do.
Hmm.
But sometimes people will remain lost for a lot longer than they need to. Sometimes it's a choice, and sometimes that's their
No,
burden
no,
to bear.
no. It's sometimes that's they're told to be something else. Sometimes some people are are told something because their parents have done it,
And that's all
and
they've ever
it's
known.
exactly. And so guess what? Since it's been done for so many generations in their family, guess what? You're gonna fall in the same
And it
suit.
becomes reasonable to think that. It becomes reasonable to behave in a societal norm that
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily have any founding in logic and that isn't sound
But some
in many different realms and ways.
yes,
And
and
so when we decide to look at what is really going on, the why
mhm.
and the how, I think it's misconstrued a lot of going against the family and being the black
Well,
sheep and doing all
not
these
just the
things.
family, but just in
Culture
your
in general, too.
no, just in your group. Just in your group, you're going against the grain, trying to find yourself, and there's a lot of kickback, trying to find yourself, and that's very normal nowadays. Is like, okay, you're trying to be different just to be different. It's like, no, some people are trying to find
Some
themselves.
people are placed here to be
Hmm.
different, to pivot other people to think
Hmm.
differently than they were prior to that conjunction.
Hmm.
Conjunction of space time is important. Conjunction of space time will mean that you can get spiritual signs any and everywhere, almost hinting at claircognizant and audient abilities.
Hmm.
It's, I feel like the observation of where you're at on this planet and as it pertains to everything else is so important that even if you felt like you were on the outside, you could find astrology and feel that there's like this
That's.
massive inside joke that
Mhm.
everybody kind of has an archetype, and everybody kind of, even though they may feel lost or feel these things, they were truly divinely meant to be that way
Hmm.
and inspire and aspire other people in specific times. And I think a lot of what I see too, as far as questions in my practice and tarot and how we can eliminate, is timing. The timing as it pertains to planets, shifts,
Hmm.
zodiacs, it's palatable for us on a Gregorian calendar, even through, reference
it,
books and
yeah,
generalities.
exactly, because it falls under a certain constraint. Like,
Right, the
it
constraint.
happens between here and here. This is possibly going to happen, or look out for some situation that might lead you into this kind of situation. It may not happen, but there's just a likelihood in that time period of a certain encounter dealing with this sort of what do you call it? It's called kind of like an archetype sort of element in that time frame, um, because that element falls under a certain element, a certain emotional feeling, um, and if it's in that certain time period, and doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's just something to be aware of.
But it's within the cosmos as a
Hmm.
possibility. And I bring it up
That's
because
great. Yeah.
astrology is abiding by the cosmos or the
Hmm.
cosmic sense of things. And I bring it up because the tangibility is something that we're seeing in a logical sense in today's
Hmm.
time. But when I get asked the question of time, and I think we've had this discussion before, we are tasked with eliminating people's ability to think that we are infinite and that we belong to the cosmos, and that the timing that we understand now is so different than the grand scheme of timing as it pertains to our disposition or
Yeah.
what we're here for.
Yes, but
So timing is something that it is tough. But astrology, as the planets are turning in cycles, give
but
us
see,
a
that's.
grander scale of this will
Yes,
happen in the next
and
five
that's.
thousand years.
Yes, but that's the funny thing, is time is a man-made construction.
Right, just like this
Now,
calendar.
now, astrology and the movement of planets.
They're observed
That's
by man.
that's an observation. That's like, it happens between a certain period, and that's how we can. And still, that's kind of different. It happens between certain phases of in our perspective, where we are in the universe, but that's not time in a way. It's something that we observe because we are so far away. It's like,
But we're so connected in such a way that it is written in the stars
yes,
that we are a
but
certain way. That is
but
just
see,
so
that's,
like,
yeah, but time and our observation of the planetary alignments kind of like are like two puzzle pieces that go together.
I do believe so.
But one doesn't need the other
Yeah,
to happen.
right.
It's just that for us to understand.
Which is, I think, a lot of
It's.
people's main purpose, understanding.
Mhm.
Like, your purpose can be that simple: to
Mhm.
understand your surroundings, to understand yourself, to understand your family.
And
Just
that's,
see
yeah,
that.
it's a tool. It's a useful tool. It's not like end all be all, because
Because as an infinite being, that has astrological nature with all the cycles that we've seen for hundreds of years, this blip in time may not lend itself to full understanding of your soul's purpose and what you're doing. And it's no reason to be discouraged. It's a reason to fully understand, grasp that, and sit tight as we travel on a rock through space.
Space and time.
Space and time. So, yeah.
Space, time, and what else? Shoot.
The void. I don't know.
Well, no, and our spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's, you know, we're just a rock tumbling through space.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean that's the crazy thing is like, we're this galaxy. We're actually, because of all the planetary alignments and all the gravity of the sun, we're like traveling together.
Mm-hmm.
Our galaxy is traveling like in like a big unit into space. It's like, but
It's
that's
so vast and
yeah, but
nearly incalculable.
yes, but we're traveling. We're not. I mean, we seem like we're stationary, but everything is like traveling in the same speed away from each other.
Actually, it's traveling.
Yeah.
We're traveling in a spiral
Yeah,
going
in
around
the
this way.
yeah,
And all
but
the different planets are spiraling,
oh
and
no
it
no,
creates
but
like a vortex
yes,
and sacred geometry.
but see, but
and-
that's part of our galaxy and our and our and our solar. I mean, that's our solar system, but the whole galaxy is constantly spinning, but it's spinning away.
So now you
from,
see how galactic astrology
Yeah.
would make sense, right?
Mhm.
What galaxy you're from,
Mhm.
when you're estimated to exist in that galaxy from the past, far past, or in the future.
Mhm.
See? Makes sense. Because a whole galactic system, there's got to be whole other ones, and that, therefore, would give the galactic enthusiasts
But see,
a
I'm
way
not.
to have galactic astrology to understand themselves, their disposition, and the spiritual download information that puts them in that place
Yeah,
to begin with.
honestly, I never heard of it until earlier in
Yeah.
our conversation we had earlier. So it's like, but
It's
that's
pretty neat. I mean, it makes sense, especially exactly how you explained it. It's traveling like this. Okay, well, Capricorn has been traveling like this, and so has Aquarius and all this. It's crazy translatable to think that there could be even more levels than the levels that we've already covered.
yeah. I mean, our current our understanding of understanding of astrology is.
It's pretty low
just-
in consideration.
Well, no, it's
mean,
it's just
It's not as emphasized and incorporated enough into our human life as it really
Well,
could and should be,
given
given its importance and all it's done. But
well, people don't realize like some of the people in Wall Street use it
yeah,
when
they
making
do.
decisions.
When I
big
was
decisions.
in business school, they made me learn lunar cycles, and I was like,
It's-
"Oh, that's so weird! What a coincidence!" It wasn't a coincidence. I already knew about the
There's
lunar
a
cycles,
lot of
There's
these investors.
specifics to that.
Yes.
It's a true strategy derived specifically from planetary movement or the moon's movement that spearheads decisions on how that affects a group of people and their, let's say, buying decisions, their non-buying decisions. Hospitals prepare for full moons, new moons.
I've heard some of these psychics that do nothing but prophesizing when to buy certain stocks from certain foundations or these organizations. They make if you're really good at it, they make a ridiculous amount of money.
The psychics?
Yes, that do nothing but psychic predictions for buying stocks
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff for other
And that
for
can
other
truly
people's-
be told and predicted by looking at planetary position and what it's done in the past as far as what will bring in more
Exactly.
money.
There's-
And it is
there's a
uncanny.
pattern.
Yeah,
There's
there's
a-
a,
there-
calculable pattern that you can look back in retrospect and be like, aha, I got it. This and this means this.
during this lunar cycle.
Mhm.
This was always consistently sold more of, and compared to this lunar cycle,
So I think
this year.
the moon is
This
an exception to a planet that will drive you emotionally, physically, spiritually wild at least twice a month. There's no other planet, even in retrograde, that can do that.
correct. Yeah, because we're just so tied. We're just so tied to the planet. Yeah, we're
that
so.
specific one.
Mhm.
But we talked about Mercury retrograde earlier. That would mean that businesses maybe tiptoe around a Mercury retrograde. But what about a Venus retrograde or a Neptune retrograde? Those things are something that even at a deeper level, I think companies could even take under consideration to the micro level of computing and science and math.
Yeah, because it could lead to innovation in certain aspects. I was like, okay, what's going on? What kind of new projects are going on? So, I mean, an investor can go, oh, when was this made, and when, and they'll probably get a psychic. Probably is like, okay, this was created between this lunar cycle and this month or whatever. Just and they can get an idea. Is like, is it going to be a good investment to get into that project?
And so a quote came to mind, and I want to make sure I had it right. It's a Nikola Tesla quote that comes to mind. And we talked about calculations and investments and patterns. When you see patterns, in my head, I think about almost like graph paper and how if you're turning that a certain way, and we turn the graph papers a certain way, and we got the right math equation, we're going to keep doing that. We're learning from those patterns and what that looks like. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Anything that's been brought down from the thought plane into our plane has a frequency, has energy and vibration. So do all of these plans, and they can be kind of even mathed out into graph paper and create somewhat of a blueprint that helps us understand the way of the universe as we're barreling through space. So for someone like Nikola Tesla to understand that there is an underlying blueprint or an underlying puzzle piece or an underlying observational sense of things that boil down to energy,
and that's a big one.
frequency,
That's
and
a big one. The
vibration.
observation
Specifically.
because
and obviously the people that have the most money have some sort of secret of this universe. How do they do that? They have secrets. Well, the secrets might very well be tucked into astrology and the patterns.
Yes, and that's the crazy thing is like people. There's so many people that diss it, but they diss it for there's a reason. There's a reason why a lot of these people that are in these organizations that make a lot of money, they don't want you to believe. It's like, oh no, I don't do that. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Yes, we do. But I can't tell you that because it's gonna sound like
it sounds like a secret of the universe that if it were a secret, you can't know it because then it wouldn't be a secret.
Well, no, not only that, but it's like it's so unfathomable for some people
because it's not culturally incorporated like it should or could be.
Well,
it's very much so kept to be somewhat of an esoteric science study,
that's
wrong.
No. You have to look at it culturally in the U.S. You are correct in the U.S. because in other cultures it is very, very much so part of their belief system as well.
I don't know about like their e-commerce and their day-to-day business.
No, I'm talking about astrology in different cultures. Is more they are more in tuned like the Mayans.
Yeah, you're right.
The Mayans is like everything is about the
but that's an ancient
astrology.
Civilization.
But that they're still Mayans today.
True. And the way that they function is much different. I mean,
that
could touch on Native American
but that's
tradition and culture a little.
That's completely different. But what I'm saying is that culturally, there are other cultures that still are in tune with the astrology with part of their day-to-day lives.
And hopefully business and decision making too.
Like India.
Oh yeah.
There are like several levels because They go feng shui. They go directions, placements of objects that are in your room, directions, what it is, and how big it is, how small it is, how much clutter you have in your. It is they. I mean, and that's just feng shui that they like to do over there because of energy the energy that you create in the room, placements of your items in the room.
Oh yeah, you're very correct. Yeah.
There are more like here in the US, we don't think about that
We
because
don't rever those things.
we are a country created by Puritans.
A country of
so
craziness. It's so
uh,
crazy up here.
yeah, because they left Europe because
Oh,
they were too strict. It's like,
I'm
you
not
guys
great
go
with
that way.
history.
You guys are too crazy for us. You guys are way too strict. Go to another country, go to another continent, and live there. You're you're too much of a stress monkey for us. So go ahead, go over there. And that doesn't mean that they were also I hate to say this, the greatest or the smartest that came over here. They were just a group of people. I mean, honestly, compared to the people in the past, yes, they were smarter than the people of today.
Yeah.
On the average, because they had to be very ingenious, very resourceful, with what they had in the land. That's how it was in Europe, and that's how they passed on that survivability here into this continent, to survive, and and just innovate, and they just continue innovating over here where they innovated over in Europe, but it was just a different level because they had more resources compared to here,
Yeah.
to innovate, and that's where like the Industrial Revolution, I think, it had.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, it could boil down to readily available resources and infrastructure and those type
I
of
mean,
things.
we had resources here, but there was not the manpower to create it to be like it was in Europe at the time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because
Wow,
they
and
had.
a lot of the divination tools down to tarot and stuff, they're coming from across the world. None of it really started here.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is that culturally, back bringing it back to our earlier conversation about how in the U.S. astrology is not a big deal here, but in other cultures around the world, it is their day by day
True.
thought that they live by every day. Because we're here in America, we have too many religions.
It'd be smart for businesses in those regions to function on an astrological schedule, not just to be devious like we are here in the United States. But I'd assume that if the people are practicing the astrology, that certain businesses close on certain astrological conjunctions.
Some businesses here in Texas that are run from owners that are historically from India do have certain days that they do close on certain holidays or days that they deem like it's a bad day to do business on this day. They close. There are few, but there are still some that they literally will close business.
And that's the thing too with astrology, is that astrology may predict or may show unfavorable conditions for your day, but consider that those are exposing specific variables to you that are definite that you can work around. So even astrology in the present, like I disclosed that I used it, in retrospect, taking the information that's working against you and having the other stuff work for you to get around those things is super valuable. And I feel like that's definitely something that people don't think about when it comes to incorporating astrology on a day-to-day basis without being a practitioner, or just, being smart about a system that could really lend itself to you. I feel
Yes.
like a lot of people will see the uncomfortability of what the day may hold in a general sense, and feel that they need to move in such a way that matches that. It's not matching energy when it comes to astrology. It's observing, recognizing, and attuning yourself to a certain frequency, or recognizing and observing where you're at, and intentionally aspiring to do something different, using your control, your free will, and your guidance system to do just that, especially with the help of these will not work for you today. Use your other tools, use other things to your advantage. And that's one thing that I want to also put into this podcast in this episode as far as astrology, because I was like, no, it's not all in retrospect. It can very much so be in strategic planning, especially when, you're pushing through certain times in your life, or, whatever it is. So retrograde cycles really need a lot of inspiration.
Yes, and like the
that's
natal,
where you get it.
and kind of like what you were saying about the natal chart too, is like,
Yeah.
if you know where the positions are,
Where you can improve what your goals are, but what your hindrances are in comparison, gives you a blueprint and a set of puzzle pieces that will complete a picture if you're paying attention, and if you can see it for what it is, rather than what you've been told what it is, rather than what you've been steered away that it is. So I think we covered a lot of good points about astrology that I hope you denote.
It's a knowledge that a lot of people in certain organizations
frown upon it. I'm telling you, it's like a huge elephant in the room, that looking at astrology is of the devil, and it's esoteric, and it's not. It's not. It's something that's just, it is. It's information that happens when you're born on this planet that you can use to your advantage. It doesn't have to
Churches do use it. Still, certain rituals, certain holidays fall under.
Ooh, don't get me started on how that came from the pagan traditions in other parts of the world and was just cherry picked or nitpicked. We're not going to get started. It'll be a different.
But I'm just saying is like but I'm just saying is that that's still like fall under astrology too.
But they won't admit it. It's just an observation of Easter. It's not about the goddess and the planetary transition.
It's not about spring.
No,
it's not
definitely
about,
not the planets changing the season. No,
it's not about. It's not about the Easter bunny, which is the symbol of
fertility. But that's okay. Again, not for this episode. It's so much to unpack. There's so many pagan traditions that are littered throughout many religions, many different parts around the world. But the pagan sense of connecting with the earth without the imprint structure, without understanding astrology as we've explained it or know it today.
Yes, because it's their version of observation of astrology, and where they realize like, oh, this is when we start planting. Oh, this is when we start picking. This is when it's our time to even when to slaughter our produce. Not produce, but our cattle, because I think it also goes into like the Farmer's Almanac.
Yeah,
it's
and
like
you know what? That's like
that's a huge one. That's still astrology. That
you're right.
That farmers use is like,
and it's really them following their intuition to do things because they can feel the weather change. They can see the leaves falling.
And the
they
almanacs
can feel
tell
that something's going on. Right.
The almanac tells you. It's like the farmer's. That's why it's called a Farmer's Almanac, and it's all about when is the best time.
And what's
this
mentioned?
Year.
Lunar cycles.
Exactly.
Plant on these days. Don't plant on these cycles. And it's something that again has nothing to do with knowing things in advance or being of the devil or it being
we use it more than what
we realize. It's very
where organizations tell us it's of the what it's like, dude, we use that for everything. Yeah. We use it more than we realize. Besides astrology for foretelling, or an
Personality
individual,
types.
or exactly. We use it in different levels, for business, for farming, for it's like, but people don't realize that
Well, they do
because,
now. If they've watched this podcast, I'm sure you have a plethora of information that you can
but
present to like-minded peers,
yes, I mean,
or other people that may have had
but
negative
it's
opinions when you brought up astrology in the past.
yes, I mean, but it's you don't they don't it's their choice. They have free will. It's their choice if they want to believe what we say. But there's certain facts that we do where people don't realize because, oh yeah, we are, there's certain things that we do use these planetary alignments still. I mean, the Farmer's Almanac has been around for a very, very, very long time.
That's another way of looking back and really confirming the stuff that we assumed and predicted to be happening on a cyclical basis.
Because it'll tell us
No witchy woo woo involved.
yeah, and it'll tell us
Observation.
literally weather patterns,
Just observation.
possible weather patterns.
Patterns give you
Hmm.
recognition of stuff that happens over again, or familiarity. Pattern is something that you see in geometric forms,
Mhm.
frequency, vibration, and sound.
Yes, exactly. Even sound has
Patterns.
geometrical patterns.
And that will be for another episode as well. We
Yes.
will need to cover the chakras, the colors, correspondences,
And
and I feel like that would be another one that would
Yes.
really spiritually awaken peers and friends that you may have around you prior to this podcast, because spiritual sensitivity, when we mentioned clairaudience and claircognizance, can mean noticing certain colors and sounds and frequencies and vibration, and it still not have anything to do with spirituality, much less astrology, but noticing, being observant, and what that means for the grand scheme of things will essentially sometimes lead you back to astrology. But color correspondences really are a big thing, and it's something that you can logically kind of line up together with all the information that we've covered as well. So I'm excited. A chakra podcast?
well, that's your.
I know,
you're-
it's like a chakras. Oh my gosh.
yeah, that's that would be a very interesting one to do.
Yeah.
And then we have a lot of singing bowls in the side over here that are not in the camera shot, but also it's a very useful tool that deals with sounds and resonance and vibration
frequency.
and frequencies
And the observance of self, and thus the mastery of self. Mastering who all you are and having control over your mind, your body, your spirit, and feeling happy with that, feeling content with that, and feeling that you understand what all comes with that.
all right. So do you feel comfortable in
I feel
ending
comfortable
it
with what I shared
on-
with the people.
on
I feel-
ending on that note? I think
And it's the new moon. It's the new moon today.
so. That's
So it's all about new information, manifesting. There's we need to do a podcast on that as well. Leave a comment or something if we need to do manifesting before chakras. Let us know. Manifesting is something that does take astrology into consideration in some regards, but is a huge, expansive topic that we can really attune you to certain lunar cycles, card readings about as well. So we'll unpack that a different day. But the new moon and this episode coming out is not a coincidence. So whether you see it today, whether you see it in the past, future, wherever you are, just know that you saw this information when you were supposed to, and the energies of the new moon are interlaced into all the information today. And I think it's about like creation too.
Now, I would say, before we leave, do you want to pull a card?
From what deck? I don't even have any decks around. I normally got decks on deck.
Yes, that's
Um,
actually we'll do that for next time.
You know what? I would like to pull a card for anybody that comments their zodiac. If you comment your zodiac sign after watching this podcast, I will pull a card for you. Now, I'd like to see 100 comments. I'll pull 100 cards. But if not, please reach out at American Tarot Story on social media. And I'd love to pull you a card so that you can get in line with your best astrological self with one of my astrological card decks. And I'd be happy to do that. I think that'd be really neat.
Yes.
That'd be really aligning for somebody.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that.
All right, then. Well, on that note, let us say goodbye, and we will see you next time, okay?
See ya.